I'm Alec Lewis, Vikings beat writer for The Athletic, host of a podcast because I'm a human and 5 billion of us have to have one. And I'm in for Paul Allen today. I've got Brett Blakemore behind the glass with me, helping me out with music. Appreciate that, Brett. I know that'll...
Everybody gets one.
Yeah.
That's my rule.
I really appreciate it. I went with Billy Joel. It's a good morning out there. It's 100 billion degrees, but very excited to be in for PA. Always enjoy getting to do this, usually a couple weeks before training camp. So I'm relaxed. I'm ready to go. And we're going to have a really good show today at 9:20. Just going to give the rundown before we hop into it. 9:20, going to have John Krasinski.
The Timber Tech set list.
The Timber Tech set list.
That's right.
9:20, John Krasinski, Jonny Athletic, my colleague who covers the Timberwolves and the NBA, is going to talk about the upcoming LaMelo Ball press conference at 10 o'clock. Dane Mizutani, the Vikings writer at the Pioneer Press, is going to be in studio. One of my favorites. Nicest guy of all time. Way too nice. Looking forward to talking Vikings with him. And then at 10:45, we're going to have Josh Weinfuss, a Hopkins native who has covered the Arizona Cardinals since 2019. And I've got some Kyler Murray questions for a guy who's covered Kyler, who covered him his entire career. So then at 11, I think we're going to live stream, hopefully, if we got the technology to do that, Brett, the LaMelo Ball press conference. I've never heard LaMelo give a press conference, so I'm very excited to hear what he's got. I'm
hoping that I don't have to use the dump.
Yeah.
I feel like he's the guy to do that.
Yeah, you just like on the court. I don't know if you'll ever know where he's going, but should be a really good show. If you have Vikings questions, you can send them to the text line. I believe that's 64686. Brett, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Or on social media, you can hit us. I'm at Alec_Lewis. Any Vikings questions you have, I am all ears today. But we'll begin here. So I'm moving. I've been moving apartments. It's been like the last week I've been moving. Let me tell you, Brett, it's awful.
Where to where? Are you willing to disclose that information?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I need to give my specific address, but I'd say from near the North Loop over near here in the West End. So I'm pretty close by. But I
like that play.
Moving, let me tell you, the boxes in this heat, the mattress frames, and those listening will laugh at probably the expectation of using a toolkit would not be the Alec Lewis specialty. I'm more of a sit behind the computer guy. And so it's been a journey. Everyone's been through it. I have nothing to complain about other than what everyone else does. You get your dollies, you toss some stuff on there. It works out, but it never stops. Anyway, I'm in the elevator the other day, last week. It's probably Thursday.
Old place?
New place.
Okay.
And we're going down. There's a guy in the elevator with me. I'm sweating. I probably look ridiculous. Backwards hat turned. It's just not, it's not how you want to present yourself. But I'm in the elevator and there's a guy in there. I believe his name was RJ, may have been AJ. I should have got the specific name. That's probably important, but he doesn't know what I do. But I've got, there's like a Vikings helmet that I've got moving because I just had it in my apartment. And he's like, what do you know about the team? I was like, yeah, a little bit. I didn't tell him what I do. I'm not one of those.
Thing here or there.
That's not how I roll. And he's like, so what do you think how do you think they're going to be this year? And I mean, the loaded question that is.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you guys listen to this. If you're driving around, if you're working out, whatever you're doing, like you have thought about that question and turned it in your mind time and time again. And I smiled, I think, when I received the question. The elevator gets there, the door's open, we're talking about the Vikings, but it is such a good question. How do you think the Vikings are going to be this year? What do you think they're going to be? And there are so many different ways, in my opinion, that you can go with that question. Today, Brett, because we are on 9 to noon, I am going to go with the optimistic way of answering this question to where if you're sitting this weekend, you're at the pool, you're driving around, you're with buddies, and you guys are talking Vikings, you want an optimistic path to answering this question, I'm going to give it to you because I've done a lot of work on it. I've thought a lot about it. I've talked to a lot of people about it. And the optimistic way for this team, obviously, I truly believe that there is a path to this team being very, very, very good. I really do. And you could talk about the quarterback, and we will over the course of this show, I promise.
Which one?
That's probably why Chad Abbott asked me to fill in. He just thinks we can get 3 hours of quarterback conversation. If you are the smart person talking about this with buddies, with friends, with parents, and you're sitting at the dinner table or you're driving around on a road trip to the cabin, you want to talk Vikings, you want to sound like you've got something that you know what you're talking about, the route that I would go is a vastly improved run game and what that would mean for the rest of the Vikings roster and the rest of the Vikings team. And I think that is the place that I would start and end beyond quarterback, obviously, to describe or outline the path for this team being to where you tune in Mondays to this show throughout the fall and you cannot wait to hear that montage. Like, I think that the run game is the area. So obviously, if you've paid attention, you probably know that the Vikings hired Frank Smith. And probably too much can be made about Frank Smith, but I think a reasonable amount can be made. Frank Smith, for the uninitiated, was the Miami Dolphins offensive coordinator, right-hand man with Mike McDaniel down in Miami. And they had one of, if not the most creative run games in the National Football League, the Miami Dolphins. Like what they did last year down the back half of the season, you turn on that tape. I mean, if you guys are turning on Dolphins tape this time of year, you're probably close to psychotic as me. But you turn on that tape, it's very creative. So you hired Frank Smith to work with Kevin O'Connell, provide ideas. Chris Cooper, the offensive line coach. You guys listening to this probably know. Chris Cooper is no longer here. They elevated assistant O-line coach Keith Carter. Keith Carter is widely regarded and known in the NFL as someone who is going to work his guys tirelessly. And you saw that throughout the spring. OTAs, the offensive linemen were running off the ball as if they were like track athletes. I have not seen anything like it in the time that I've covered this team. You would see offensive linemen fire off the ball and run 15 yards down the field. It was very atypical, but it was very important to me. Look, I'd say like the offensive line with this specific team, you would expect positive regression to the mean from a health standpoint. That's Christian Darrisaw. When Christian Darrisaw is available, it makes everything easier for the offensive line. You'd expect positive development from Donovan Jackson, who had a pretty good rookie season, I thought, at left guard. Blake Brandel, that's the question mark at center. But on the right side, you feel pretty confident with what you have. And guys like Will Fries and Brian O'Neill, they are run game offensive linemen at their core. So that's another reason for me. It was funny. I talk about the offensive line work. Like there was a day this spring or in June where Will Fries comes off the field. And I mean, he was sweating like a dog. Like he had just run his ass off out on the practice field at a very impressive level. And I mean, the sweat was pouring off of him and we're talking about the work and you could see that he was drained, but there was an excitement over what was possible in that phase of the team. So you hear all that, you might be like, well, why, can Kevin O'Connell stick to the run game? We're going to find out about that. What does it do for the rest of the team from a multiplication aspect? This for me, it's like a physics equation. The more you run the football, the more the defense needs bigger bodies. The more they have bigger bodies on the field, the easier it is to throw the football. And it works in tandem. And I believe that Kevin O'Connell, being the sharp head coach that he is, to see the run game be effective would help him be more committed to it. And I think that's for him, that is a critical aspect of this. For Kevin O'Connell to prove that he can run the football consistently and dictate to defenses, I think that would be such a critical aspect, an exponential aspect for this entire team. So for me, I just think what that could do For the rest of the roster, it keeps the defense on the sideline. They're fresher throughout the games. It's an older defense with guys like Blake Cashman and Andrew Van Ginkel who need to stay healthy. There is a million reasons why an effective run game should be believed in, that it can be better, and that if it is better, I really do think there's a reason this team can win a lot of games. That's my opinion.
Now, none of those additions and changes that you mentioned were the running backs themselves, with Aaron Jones or Jordan Mason. Do you think that all of these changes could survive? Don't want anyone to get hurt, knock on wood, don't want to jinx it, but let's say Aaron Jones goes down. We don't want him to do that. Could all these changes negate that and having your top guy go down?
I think that is a reasonable question. Very reasonable. I think, Aaron Jones he's so multiple for Kevin O'Connell because he works in the pass game. He lives in pass protection. He can also run the football, but he's likely to get injured because he's above the 30 mark and he's gotten injured a lot in recent years. Jordan Mason's a really effective runner. He just doesn't have that multiple skill set. The wild card, the ace in the deck, what have you, is Damon Claiborne, the rookie 6th round pick. It's probably a lot to expect that Damon Claiborne is really good out of the gates. But if he learns the system and if he is consistent every day with his work habits, I've talked to enough people internally who are really high on him that I think it's possible that he could have a major impact, specifically with how they want to run the football. But I really think if you're a Vikings fan, you want to be optimistic. Obviously, you start with the quarterback. But beyond that, you can't really in football in the NFL silo one specific aspect of a team with another. The run game affects the pass game. The run game affects the defense. All of it kind of flows together. And so that is where I begin. And it probably was too long-winded of a way to explain to this man named RJ in the elevator why I think there's reason to be optimistic.
Yeah, how many floors were you going down?
I mean, look, this is not that big of an apartment building. But here on 9 to noon on KFAN, we have the bandwidth to be able to explain that. And so, look, we'll return to that throughout the show. If you have questions about it, hit us on the text line 64686. The Timber text set list, John Krasinski coming up after the break. Once we get around the corner at 9:20, Dane Mizutani in studio at 10, Josh Weinfuss on Kyler Murray at 10:45, and then LaMelo Ball press conference at 11. This should be a blast of a Tuesday morning. Stick with us. I'm Alec Lewis, in for PA on the Fan. Talk to you guys around the corner.
Before we go, we will have a long segment that'll be brought to you by Steve's Appliances. It'll be a Steve's Appliances marathon segment. Also, shout out to Timber Tech for the Timber Tech set list. And also, the Fan and BigDeck.com. I'm going to give you a shot to win bonus bucks with the National Cash Contest. Just head to KFAN.com. The keyword is green. The keyword is green. My favorite color. The keyword is green.
It's Alec.
The radio home of Minnesota sports is also on YouTube. You can check out the KFAN YouTube channel for exclusive videos, in-depth takes, initials and password games, behind-the-scenes content, and much, much more. Search KFAN on YouTube and hit subscribe today.
Welcome back to 9 to noon on this fine Tuesday morning, I believe it is. Going to have a lot of fun here with our next guest. He is my colleague. He's been a mentor of mine, and I am grateful for the way he does the job, as I know you guys listening around the Twin Cities are as well. His name is John Krasinski. He covers the Timberwolves in the NBA for The Athletic. There's a big press conference today with LaMelo Ball. John, are you looking forward to that? How are you?
What's up, Alec? I am looking forward to it. You know, there's been certainly a lot of examination and analysis and speculation about the LaMelo Ball deal over the last couple of weeks. And so to actually be able to kind of hear LaMelo talk about what he thinks about being here, about his fit, about kind of maybe all the stuff that has been said about him, it will be interesting because he's one of those guys, Alec, where, you know, I think I've seen him play a bunch of games. I've seen him on highlights and all these things. I've never really heard him talk at length all that much. And so I'm just going to be really interested to see kind of what he's all about today and like how he comes off and get this new era of the Wolves started here.
What are you most, I mean, not to tip your questions, but what are you most looking forward to hearing about from him or hearing him talk? Whether it's, I mean, I would imagine entering this thing like you go a bunch of ways. The excitement playing with Ant or the jarring kind of, you've been with one organization your entire career. It's crazy how long this guy has been in our lives. I think I don't know if I've told you this, John, but I remember I interned in Los Angeles at Yahoo Sports when I was in college, and I remember covering him, LiAngelo, and LeVar with the league they had. I mean, this one was probably like 2017, so it's almost 10 years at this point. But to get back, what are you most looking forward to hearing from him?
Yeah, I want to kind of just get a little bit of a glimpse into his mentality of coming to a new situation here. I think that the biggest question about him at this point as a player is, is he a serious-minded player? Is he ready to try to be a part of a team that is really has designs on going deep into the playoffs? And I don't expect him to really cut open a vein about, his perception and about kind of sort of trying to educate people on who he is. I think he's more of a, I'm going to show you who I am versus tell you kind of a guy. But at the same time, there's been a lot of criticism of the trade because I think some people don't believe in LaMelo Ball as a serious-minded winning player. Now, people around him and even a lot of people in Charlotte will tell you that's an unfair characterization. But I just want to hear what he thinks about kind of uprooting and coming to a new spot where he's going to be relied upon to be kind of the quarterback of a team that wants to get back to the conference finals and more.
What do you think about I think when it first happened, it's understandable that my mind would go to the Kyler Murray edition. And for me, there's some similarities of two guys at similar points in their career with an opportunity, with a lot of narratives around them, I'd say, and a lot of hype for a long time, but also the opportunity to kind of reshape the narrative of their career in organizations that have been pretty successful. Do you, when that's brought up, do you see similarities there or it just in terms of personalities and just where they are in their careers?
Yeah, I think it's a great point, Alec, because you look at it, these are two guys who can produce as jaw-dropping of highlights as there is in the league, right? I mean, Kyler Murray, if you just were to say, hey, let's just call up YouTube Kyler Murray highlights, I mean, there'd be just 10, 15 minutes of just incredible plays. Same with LaMelo. You call up, LaMelo highlights, and I mean, it's unbelievable, all of the cool things that he's done just in that perspective. But neither one has won at a high level. Both have dealt with some injuries, and I think both have had some questions about their general overall approaches to the game, whether that's fair or not. And so I do think that both are coming to town to very talented organizations with good coaches, with talent around them, and the opportunity to kind of take the next steps in their careers that everyone has waited for. LaMelo's never been in the playoffs. Charlotte had a really good year last year. It kind of ended with a whimper. And, with Kyler, he has put up some big numbers, but never won at a really high level. And I think that there will be a referendum of sorts on, is it the player or is it the organization and kind of the environment that they grew up in that is more attributable to the lack of team success so far? So I think there's a real connection there.
You've done a lot of reporting at The Athletic, kind of about just how confident, the Wolves were in their evaluation here, how excited it sounds like many within the front office and coaching staff probably were about this acquisition. I wonder, because you're as connected as you are throughout the entire league, agents, other executives, like what did people throughout the league think of the Wolves making this move at this time?
Yeah, I think that there was, I was just in Las Vegas for Summer League and talked to, the trade was a big talking point, just in kind of bouncing things off of agents and executives and other coaches and things. And I think a lot of the reaction has been, hey, another big swing from Tim Connolly. I think most people, most talent evaluators in the league look at LaMelo and say, man, you just cannot deny what is there from a physical tools perspective, from a feel for the game, from just an overall talent standpoint. 6'7", can see the floor the way that he does, shoots it the way that he does. But there's also kind of, as they talk about the excitement of that, there is also I don't know, can he stay healthy? Can he keep is he going to be about the right things? And so every sort of compliment or every sort of sign of excitement is also met with a little bit of a, but you got to watch this kind of a thing. And so while, I think the evaluation of the trade in the media landscape has been polarizing. Some people love it. Some people hate it. The people, that are real basketball folks in the league are looking at it as, hey, I get why they did it, but there is a little bit of a risk here, and so I'm going to be very interested to see how it plays out. That's kind of been the overwhelming sentiment. There's going to be a lot of eyes on this team all season long, just to see how this comes together, to see how LaMelo kind of works through it. Because if it clicks, there's an acknowledgement that it could be really special, and if it doesn't, then they're going to be having to pivot, pretty hard. But so many people really think that, hey, LaMelo is really talented. They just got to make sure that he's in this environment where even just a little bit of that electricity is just tamped down a little bit, and it could be really good.
It's interesting that you mention others within the league, like recognizing or noting, or maybe it's like joking about Tim Connolly's aggressiveness, because I mean, we've talked about this, but it does blow me away that he is as, I don't know, just, aggressive is the word, in trying to be creative and really be in the mix and in the conversation for big moves, big opportunities that come with massive reaction, review, and there's like a I don't know, like the threshold. What's so impressive to me is his threshold for being willing to take whatever the reaction is seems to be as high as it could possibly be. What do you think it is about him that allows or provides him like the clarity to covet these types of big swings?
Yeah, it's like he doesn't do normal trades. Like there's no just role player for role player. I'm just like, this makes sense kind of a move. Every trade is like a wow, brain breaking, like this is incredibly, bold maneuver. And I do think Alec, you talk to a lot of people in the NFL and stuff, and everyone will tell you, I don't let social media dictate what I do. I stay in a bunker. I don't even have social media. Almost all of them are lying to you. They are all worried about the perception. They're all looking at the trade grades. They're all kind of actually concerned about their job and what does the owner think about this. Tim Connolly literally does not. Like there's been a few times, over the years where, I'll talk to him like, man, this thing had a really strong reaction on Twitter or whatever. He's like, really? What? Like, I have no idea. Like, he literally doesn't. And so he has adopted a sense of self-security where he's not trying to prove anything to anyone else. He's not worried at all about what other people think. And he just thinks that as long as he's making moves that get them even one step closer to possibly contending for a championship, he's going to do them. And so it is absolutely one of the most risk-embracing general managers I've ever covered in any sport. And it just means that every day you never know what's coming around the corner, and it's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, for you, you're probably, it keeps you by the phone nonstop because and the hard part for me would be like, and you've done the reporting of the Wolves being linked so many times to these big names, and it would be difficult to discern like how legit is this one. But I mean, I think he's proven that every time the Wolves are connected, you kind of have to place some semblance of realistic probability alongside it.
Yeah, literally every one of these forays have been legit. Like, it's not been performative. It's not been overhyped like the Giannis stuff, the Kevin Durant stuff. All of it is, you have to take seriously. And, I did sense a few times earlier, like, especially with Giannis and the coverage of that, I could hear some fans saying, come on, like, here we go again. He's just going to do something. And it's going to be like all for naught, and it's all just a bunch of talk. With Tim Connolly, it's never all just a bunch of talk. Like, he gets in these things and tries to make them happen. It doesn't mean that he always does. The Giannis and KD examples, both, really kind of clear instances where, nope, he didn't pull it off, but it wasn't for lack of effort. It wasn't for him, just trying to get his name and the Timberwolves name in the mix. Like, all of these things he's really trying to do. And so, like, you have to take every single one seriously because every single one could happen. And it's a wild ride for sure. You and I haven't talked about this, but I was curious, like, how much does he incorporate analytics or that front office? Because just reading about his background, like, it does sound like very deep scouting expertise, but some of the LaMelo reaction was very much his on-off ability, how much the ball flows with him on the court. So, how engaged do you feel like they are with analytics, and what's your sense on that as a driver of any of their decision making? Yeah, they do have a robust analytics department. They do all the homework. They look at all the spreadsheets. They have models that they use to try and project, what each lineup looks like with different players and stuff. And so they use it as a guide, but definitely, if you're putting it on the spectrum, they're certainly kind of skew closer to traditional scouting, eye test, that sort of thing to make their decisions, especially Tim. Chris Finch will say that they use analytics as a guide, not a god. And so I do think that that's the way that this group kind of goes about it is, yes, they want to be educated. They want to look at all of the tools available to them. But, there are a lot more organizations out there that are, strictly adhere to the numbers much more than the Timberwolves do. This is not like, they don't just like fly by the seat of their pants and and get in a room with the guy and then make a decision just based on vibes and feel. But Tim Connolly has always been kind of more rooted in the scouting end of things. I think Chris Finch is big time into show me what you can do, not tell me on a computer screen. And so I would put them more on the line of, we're going to use these things, but they are not like the number one kind of determiner of what we do and what we don't do. Sure. So 15 minutes, I didn't mention LeBron. I feel like that. I mean, it's at this point, everyone is waiting for it. Or they've turned off the dial. They're like, what does this guy do? Where does the LeBron James free agency saga 2026 stand? Yeah, it's like there is some sort of murmuring around the league in the last day or two that maybe LeBron is getting closer to a decision, that he has all the information that he needs, and now he's just kind of processing it and trying to figure it out. I don't think anyone truly knows when it's going to happen. What I can say, though, is, as recent as yesterday, talking to people within the Wolves organization, they still believe they are firmly seated at the table, that they have a real chance at this, that this is not some kind of, show or episode of the documentary, that, they are actually talking to LeBron's people, that they are getting a fair shake and a real opportunity to be considered, and that they have a real chance here. And so, I've said it before, Alec, but I do think that if you want to read tea leaves and you want to, kind of work logically through it, I do think that the longer that this goes on, the better chance the Timberwolves have of coming out on top of it. Because, I can see a scenario where LeBron is looking through all these things. He's looking at Golden State, he's looking at Cleveland and Miami and Philadelphia and everyone. And there are other places that more traditionally make sense, like playing with Steph Curry, going back home to Cleveland, reuniting with Miami. Like, those things kind of make sense. But if he's looking for straight basketball chances, I could see it being like, man, I just keep coming back to Minnesota and all the boxes that they check, and trying to talk his way through it. So it doesn't guarantee anything, but it just is interesting to me that, I think that if you're a Wolves fan, if you're in the organization, you want this thing to drag out another week. You want it to keep going, because that maybe means that LeBron is just really thinking hard about actually coming to Minnesota, which is just kind of a crazy sentence to say when you've covered this organization as long as I have.
Listen, if he comes up here, goes to Porzana, goes to, takes a tour of Gavin Kaysen's restaurants, he's going to be all
Hazeltine.
Hazeltine. John, what is your sense of how Ant would feel if, with that possibility?
Yeah, I think Ant would be fully on board with it. I wrote a story after the playoffs about how he kind of is playing through injuries and trying to take better care of his body. And they said in that story that LeBron is the blueprint. They have looked at LeBron and the way that he has gone about his business, the way that he kind of stays so strictly adhered to his regimen and made a career that probably could have been 15 years turn into 22, 23 plus. And he's the standard. And so Ant has always looked up to LeBron, has always admired the work that he's done. And he is like one of the few stars in the league who is on a higher plane than Anthony Edwards. And so I do think that Ant would look forward to learning from him on how he does everything on the court, off the court, everything involved in it. And not to mention that the one thing that Ant wants to do more than anything is win a championship. And if LeBron is here, their odds of winning a championship go up dramatically. And so I think he's embracing the idea of it, and would be very, very excited if it were to happen.
I just would look forward to your profile hanging out at LeBron, playing golf with LeBron or something like that. That's. I want it for a lot of reasons, but that would be very high on the list. Last one, then we'll let you head out to the press conference for LaMelo. But I watched a little bit last night of Olivia Miles for the first time. I would just can you describe your perspective of what she has been able to do as a rookie in the WNBA? Because I watch her, I'm like, it's just joy is what my mind goes to.
Yeah, it's incredible, like the impact. First and foremost, coming to a team that has a history of winning like the Lynx do, but that were missing two really key players, including maybe the best or second best player in the entire league. I think you came into the season being like, it's going to be a solid year, but they'll just kind of retool and maybe come back and get him next year. And then Olivia, not just like with her overall talent, but with the way that she plays, she's just electrified the entire organization in the city, really. I mean, it's a fun, flashy style, but it's also incredibly effective. And so, like, she should be in the MVP conversation. Not the Rookie of the Year is a wrap. Like, that's been over for a month and a half. But now you are talking about this rookie who has come in and has just energized the entire place. She makes Kayla McBride better. She makes Natasha Howard better. She makes everyone around her better. And then she has just lifted the vibes to such a degree, and they have the best record in the NBA. Like, that's MVP level stuff. And to do that as a rookie, and one who kind of came out of nowhere, because I know she's the number 2 pick, but she wasn't on the Paige Beckers, Caitlin Clark hype train that other rookies have been, and now she is. And it's just super fun to see the reaction, to see how she's been embraced, but also just to see, like, just how important she has been to this team from day one, the moment she landed here. There's no overstating what an impact she's had.
Yeah, watch it. It really is. Like, it's electrifying. That was awesome. John, good luck at the presser. We'll look forward to the questions and the coverage in The Athletic afterwards, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for hopping on.
All right. Thanks, Alec.
All right, that's John Krasinski, my colleague at The Athletic. I'm grateful to call him that because of how good he is. Some interesting comments there with the Wolves and LeBron James.
You showed tremendous restraint.
Look.
That was the first thing I asked him when I called him. Where's LeBron?
Look, I wanted to ease into it, Brett. You got to keep the people listening. We're going to talk about that, some of the comments that John made when we come back. I'm Alec Lewis, and in for PA on the Fan with Brett Blakemore producing. Thank you guys for listening.
It's Alec Lewis in for Paul Allen on the...
What's happening in your favorite KFAN shows? You can make your voice heard on the Brad Sean Bryant KFAN text line. Just let us know what you have to say by texting your message to 64686. That's 64686. Standard text message and data rates apply.
All right, Dane Mizutani in studio. Dane, how are you?
Good. Happy to be here.
Thanks for hopping in. I think you were gonna. There was one June practice I was gonna host, and then they scheduled some stuff. So
I'm glad we finally made it happen.
I know.
Yeah, I think we were meeting with the assistant coaches or something that day. So glad we could finally make it all happen in studio.
We're gonna talk about LeBron in a second, but the text line, Brett, it's always entertaining.
I know. Good and bad.
You can tell Alec is still younger than 30 years old, didn't hire movers. It's probably accurate.
I am 34, Alec, and I'm surprised you did not hire movers. We're too old to be doing this. Our backs can just randomly go out by just moving the wrong way.
I moved a couple weeks ago, and I wish I hired movers.
So you did it all yourself? I
did it all with myself and some family members and a couple buddies.
I was telling Dane in between breaks, and Dane walked in, there is nothing more humbling than, for me personally, than sitting over something that you're having to build and struggling with it. It's just, I'd feel so embarrassed.
The IKEA furniture where it has no directions. It's just pictures. The pictures are all obscure. It took me 7.5 hours to put together our king size bed, mattress frames.
That's something that I had a furniture delivery for the new bed and the new couch. I just walked in and it was there.
See, that's
fantastic.
And that's what this guy's talking about. You probably were listening to John on the way in, where John says that the longer it goes, the more optimistic maybe Wolves fans should be. I'll just start LeBron in Minnesota. Your thoughts?
It would be tremendous. If somehow that were to happen, it would be tremendous. I think the biggest takeaway you can have, or the thing you can feel good about it if you're a Wolves fan, though, and John said this many times on the radio, in print, just the fact that they're in the conversation is a big step forward. And it shouldn't just be a feather in the cap of it shouldn't be something they continuously hold on to as Timberwolves fans, because at some point I think we do have to accept this is just a good team, and we don't have to treat it like it's the mid 2000s with Luke Ridnour starting at point guard. But to see how far they've come, I came here for school in 2010.
Yeah.
And there are like 5,000 people in the building sometimes. Now they're in the conversation for LeBron James. It is a crazy kind of leap to that next echelon of teams in the NBA. All that being said, I would still be very surprised if it happened.
Yeah, I would too. It is interesting. John talked about, seeing some fans who watching the Wolves being connected to everybody are like, and I did have some of that in talking to some buddies where I'm like, they're connected to everybody. Is this just to like show the work that they're doing or the relationships that they had? But I think over time, Tim Connolly's just proven that they actually are that connected.
Yeah, it's tough because right now in the NBA offseason, I guess we're almost past that point, but in the early stages of the NBA offseason, you're right. Everybody is connected to everybody. Everybody is interested in player A. Everybody's also interested in player B, player C, player D. Regardless of what team it is, regardless of what player it is, it seems like the reports are just everybody is tied to everybody. So it's hard to discern what is real and what is fake. But yeah, I think John made a good point when you had him on, is that like Tim Connolly, this is not just lip service. This is not just something for appearances. If he sees a big fish that he thinks he can reel in, he's going to go try and reel in the big fish. Doesn't mean he's always going to succeed, but I think the fact that they've continuously put themselves in position or in the conversation at least, not only speaks to how far they've come as a franchise, but speaks to who is pulling the strings. Tim Connolly, more courage than me with the things he's been able to pull off so far.
Yeah, I think like a few weeks ago, I was listening to a Dane Moore podcast. He does a great job with Britt Robson, and I think Britt was talking about potentially like the Tim Connolly's background and how much his scouting chops and being in the gym with other GMs and evaluators like gives him a leg up from an information perspective. And I do think that is one, and this probably gets larger, but that is one like real strength that general managers or president of basketball operations or whatever the title is have to have. It's like, do you actually have genuine relationships where you can pick up the phone and garner intel? And with Tim Connolly, like it feels like he lives in that area of always at the nexus of what is going on at the peak level within the NBA. You and I did, like, I think in June, Dane, or might have been earlier, we were talking about Zion. We were talking, I was kicking, what do you think of this? Just because I'm a basketball guy. I know you love it too. Like, with LaMelo, what was your reaction to that? And how did your reaction change, I'd say, over time? Yeah,
I was instantly intrigued. And I guess I'm kind of a LaMelo truther. I know like there is can he stay healthy? Is he going to be mature enough to succeed at a high level? All of the question marks that I think have been well documented. But the pace he plays with, the creativity he has, and if you just really drill down and watch the San Antonio series. I saw a tweet. It was like a cynical tweet about like, yeah, I watched the Timberwolves versus the Spurs, and what I was really thinking is they're a LaMelo Ball away. That was said with sarcasm. That's how I felt. I felt like they needed another ball handler. They needed another creator because Anthony Edwards was getting blitzed every time he crossed half court, and there was nobody else that he could kind of use as a release valve. So LaMelo instantly intrigued me in that sense. Get Ant playing off ball a little bit more, maybe free him up on the defensive side by not putting too much of his plate on the offensive side. Also, Anthony Edwards just an incredible catch and shoot three-point shooter. Just look at the metrics. It's all going to make sense if LaMelo can check all the boxes that you need him to check at this point in his career. But if you're LaMelo Ball, and I'll be interested to hear what he has to say in an hour when it's streamed on KFAN. Like,
nice.
Yeah, I like that plug.
Yeah, exceptional. Like, that's spoken like a veteran right there.
If you're him, though, you just got traded by the team that drafted you, by the team that you were supposedly the face of the franchise. I would have to think, one, that puts a chip on your shoulder, but two, that probably does make you look yourself in the mirror and say, all right, like where am I going in my career? What do I want my career to look like? And I think the Wolves could reap the benefits of that if everything stays on the track.
I'm excited to hear what he's got. I've never watched LaMelo or listened to a LaMelo press conference. So it should be entertaining. This is Dane Mizutani in studio. He covers the Vikings for the Pioneer Press. I'm Alec Lewis in for PA on the Fan. And after the break, we'll probably talk about the Vikings quarterbacks at some point. I think we're going to have to do it. You're listening to KFAN.
It's Alec Lewis in for PA on the Fan.
From the 1-800-ASK-GARY Traffic Center.
This report is sponsored by Gens Ryan Heating.